Okay, good morning, everyone. Take their seats. I'll get this meeting going. All right, I'll call the meeting to order. The agenda, any additions or deletions? Mike?
None from those two? Oh, I thought everybody had those. Okay. Addition of item 8.9 CAO appointment and 8.10 CAO transition. Sorry about that.
No problem. I would have put him in if you didn't want to. Dustin's going to move with the additions, 8.9 and 8.10. Vote. That's carried. Minutes from last time. Everybody read them? Blaine's moving them. Any questions? Vote. Carried. 5.1. Paul. You're supposed to be here. Come on up, Paul. You're the next contestant at Cypress County. Well, we'll see what happens after this.
I did say something before council, and it still holds true. Here's the presentation of the 2025 operating budget for council to approve. So the budget was presented to council on November 19th. And in the document, there's what's presented is the 2025 budget and the projections for 26 to 28. And also in the document is the approved 2025 to 2029 capital plan. And I'm free to take any questions.
Okay, thank you, Paul. Well, the capital plan's already approved, so this is the operating.
Yeah, this is just the operating budget, yes.
Michelle?
I don't have a question. I just wanted to say good job, but I don't have a question. They were all good.
Thank you. Yes, through the chair to council, this was obviously a 5 or 6 months worth of work. Want to say kudos to the directors and the supervisors with helping with the budget this year. Also with a lot to thank Sean for creating the document. And it's probably the funnest part of my job. That's what I enjoy.
That's why you have that position.
You need a hobby. Well, it's good to see that there's no raises going to it. Shane?
Yeah, I was just going to say good job, and just to give you a heads up that, we keep, the budget keeps going up every year, that in one of these years we're going to maybe put the brakes on them rising, that we got to maybe just hold and maybe start looking at cutbacks. The one little item that I think we should be really looking at is more in what the heck is it called now? Where we put into reserve funds. The reserve funds, and that seems like when I looked at it, we're taking out, but not putting back in as quick. We got a lot of aging infrastructure that we got to start looking down the road at. We got a complex down in Irvin that will need upgrades. We need a lot of bridges and that, the equipment that I feel that we got to start looking at putting a little more money aside into reserve funds. And, so we got the money to do this type of work when it arises.
go ahead, Steve.
Councillor Hawk, that's, you're 100% correct. That's something that the corporate service and administration sees. Right now, I'll just remind council that through the information and technology plan, like the IT stuff, that is market funded, so it's actual funded for the next forever. Same thing with the vehicle and equipment replacement plan. When we update those numbers, that will be at a market funding level after we corrected the spreadsheet. And through asset management and our building conditions that we brought to council, through those building conditions, we'll have a good understanding of the age life, the repairs necessary, and try to extend the life of those for the lowest possible cost. And then we can start to take an approach again now to what I'll say market fund, or fund the replacement cost instead of the historic cost. So, and that was part of, in the operating budget, that was one of the positions that council approved, was for that asset management professional. We're on it.
Yeah, no, it's good that everybody's on it. Like Shane said, we see it's coming. We don't want to get blindsided with it. I think that's some of the conversation I've had with some of the councillors over the last week or so about this. It's great that it's not going up, but we're probably looking at the way the world's changing with asset management and everything. These budgets might be hard cuts in the next few years, and I guess that's why Shane brought forward, we need to talk about it now so it's not a surprise to anybody. Anybody else have any other comments? Not seeing any. Since Michelle had her hand up first, she's going to move the budget as presented. Any final questions? Forever hold your peace on this one. You're spending 40 million bucks. Vote. That's carried. Thank you, Paul. 6, Mike?
It's there for your reading pleasure, and I'll take any questions.
Thank you. Anybody have any questions on it? Shane?
Yeah, as to Ken on Public Works. Well, with the bridge file 80345, the one that Bowen got construction, start date November 26th. With the weather change, did they start that, or the late construction ones, even the one MGB has November 28th and December 3rd, are they going to still go ahead with the way the weather is?
Through the chair. Yes, within a day or so, the schedule indicated here is their start date. So all their materials have been ordered early, and the detours put in place, and they're well underway.
Good.
Any other questions?
Here.
Blaine?
Just a question of curiosity, I guess. I just counted, what did I count now? 15 or 16 of these solar and wind projects and stuff. Wondering how many of these are actually up and running, and is any of them operating yet?
I believe it's just one, but I could be wrong.
Yeah, through the chair, we've got one wind power project, Cypress Wind, which is operational. Wild Rose is currently under construction. And then we've also got 2 solar projects up north by the Burstall gas plants, which are operational as well, and others that are still undergoing either development approvals and have utility commission approvals, or are in the queue with the utilities commission. It's still very busy, hasn't slowed down.
More for the public to understand all this activity that's going on. Is stuff actually operating or not? So thank you for that.
Any other questions? Not seeing any. Shane had the first question. He's moving the report. Vote. That's carried. Reeve and Councilors report. Not much, well, a little bit to add for mine. Yesterday we had a meeting with the minister, Mike and Ken and I, over that quick grant that was going through for Suffield. I wouldn't hold my breath on getting that one. That's probably the way they've got it set up, it has to be an emergency thing, and we're just not considered an emergency thing, even though it's something that's could be catastrophic in any given time, but they are still going to put us through the process, but I wouldn't hold my breath on that one. And then the other one is, I guess bringing forward, there's been a lot of confusion with the landfill in Redcliffe and between the city, so there's a lot going forward with that. I've been dealing with councillors on, I don't know if you guys noticed, they're trying to put the city of Medicine trying to put a $9 million composting together at the city, and a lot of councillors didn't know that we even did composting in Redcliffe, Cypress County, so there's some, I was able to get it quickly put onto the ICM meeting next week so that they can discuss it. They didn't pass it last night, so hopefully we can maybe work together as a region and get that going. I know I've fielded a lot of phone calls and talking with Ann and everything at the city, and like, guys, we're already doing it, and you need to talk to us. We don't have enough to make it operate here, so why aren't we working together? So that's going to come up at our ICM next week and see what we can do. Maybe we can work as a region and get some more tonnage going there to help us all out. That's it for mine. Robin, you want to start?
Sure. Yeah, as far as council goes, I attended the IDP public hearing this last week, which glad that I went. Or yeah, thank you. Not a public hearing. It felt like one. We had a lot of good input. So it was an open house, not a public hearing. Open house this last week. That was a positive thing. And I'm very glad that my wife is home because I was watching 10 kids by myself. And I'm glad to still be sitting here.
You're lucky she came back.
Yeah.
Blaine?
Yeah, not a whole bunch. Attended the Ag Conference, always a good networking event, and went to Urban Ag Society Annual and General Meeting on the 25th. So other than that, yeah, not much.
Dustin?
Since the last meeting, I emceed the Ag Conference, and then just a couple meetings dealing with CAO recruitment.
Yeah, I guess there was a few of those, wasn't there? Yeah. Lloyd?
I went to the Ag Conference and a couple of, Dustin said, interviews for CAO, and then on the first Sunday there, went to Elkwater Community Association. And I had a good talk with Dylan. He got up, and the meetings we've been having with him must be panning out, and because they have a contract to do that 35 kilometers of containment lines, and it should be starting in early spring, according to him. And they also have a contract for 34 days with that crew to go into the town site and remove any dangerous or tall or dead trees in the park, in the town site itself. And so that's good. He was saying that the ski hill is going to open up, and on the 12th, they're hoping. And they just finished dumping 5 million gallons of snow on one run there, and it emptied the pond. So they have to wait for the pond to fill up again before they make snow again. So, and when we were having those meetings, I know we brought up the fact that there's no manager in the fire crew. And so now they hired a fire tech who's starting in January. He'll be supervising the crews, and he'll be supervising all the cleanups and the ditches, and just like the old guys used to when they had a manager in that position. So that's good, plus they've increased their fire crews by 2 people. So instead of 3, that's a 5-man crew now. And they had their first aid course, which was put on by the fire department, Cypress County, and they had 10 people. They all passed, and they were from all over the county. There was 2 from Dunmore and 2 from Robbins area, and the rest were from the town site. But there's more people that want to have another course that got brought up. So, and the only other exciting thing is the B&Es are starting out there again. There's been 3 cabins broken into in the last week. So pretty soon there'll be more. Other than that, it's pretty quiet for me.
Okay, thank you. Richard?
November 20th, attended the Ag Connections Conference. I really enjoy that event. It just gives you a lot of opportunity to communicate with the ratepayers. A lot of ratepayers will call, but other ones would just soon have a discussion face to face, and I just find that's an excellent time. So it was really good. 21st, we had a Community Futures executive meeting, doing a little bit of heads up on strategic planning. And then we had the CAO interviews, and we had on the 27th Community Futures strategic planning session. And I just made a note of that. Like, I don't think most people understand what Community Futures Entrecourt is. Am I thinking right there? So that's something that's been around forever. And I just want to read out this mission statement quickly. Community Futures Entrecourt is a nonprofit, community-owned organization that supports entrepreneurs through financial loans and mentoring to foster small business development and economic growth in southeastern Alberta. So right now, they're really involved in some, I guess I can say, economic development stuff. They're looking ahead, trying to, they have some people, and they're working to promote, you're not supposed to say unmanned vehicles anymore, but it's drones and planes, out-of-sight vehicles. They're really trying to open up some more opportunities for growth and in the region. Plus, they, if you are thinking of starting a business, they, number one, provide some funding, or can provide some funding, and they do a lot of training. So they work in conjunction with the college and a bunch of other places. So it's a really important place, and it is, it has had a lot of entrepreneurs go through there. So then we had that strategic planning session. I did a Zoom meeting on the Milk River Watershed Council. And that, other than some phone calls, getting numerous inquiries about what Meadowlands is going to do in Desert Bloom. I have tried to pass on the message that they have talked to us, but they have brought nothing forward as a proposal. So if there's no proposal, Cypress County can't do anything until that happens. And when it happens, we will have a public hearing and everybody gets to get heard. But right now,
It's already passed.
Yeah, through the chair, just an item of clarification. Because the land use rezoning for the west phase of Desert Bloom has already been approved by council, it was previously approved in 2007. There will be no public hearing that's held. However, a subdivision application will be required, and then circulation will be provided, so landowners are notified.
okay.
And then they'll have ability to participate in that process through the Municipal Planning Commission, but not through the council.
Right, okay, so I used the wrong wording, and I apologize for that, but they will have their chance to be heard.
Correct, and they will be notified.
They will be notified, but right now, council has nothing to do with this project. It hasn't even been proposed. They're just an idea out there, and we get lots of ideas that come forward, not all of them go through, so. Our hands are tied until that, something moves forward, and Meadowlands actually makes a proposal. That's it, thank you.
Keith?
Attended the Ag Conference, really excellent day, and the reception the night before, so that was a good shoulder rubbing event. And the CEO recruitment thing that we did. Other than that, I'm done.
Michelle?
I too attended the Egg Conference, and the night before, both of those days were really good. Dustin did a fabulous job as the MC, lots of good speakers. I was also involved in the CAO recruitment, and yesterday I had a policy meeting at Cypress View Foundation, and that was it.
Thank you. Shane?
Been to quite a few square dancing events. No, just nothing much, been laying around after my surgery, but I do have a few questions for, with the Ag Connections deal, I couldn't attend because of my operation. Was it sold out and was it well attended, and any type of reviews coming back yet from it, or Dustin, do you know?
I think that would be a better question for Beth since she's in the room.
Do you want to take it, Beth?
I'm just really curious.
So yeah, it was a really well attended event. I'm just waiting for survey results from people that attended and getting some of the final information all in a nice report for you guys. But off the top of my head, we had 448 attendees there. We had about 540 registered, so we did have a handful of people not show, but between the weather and people being sick, that's fair. But yeah, all of our speakers showed up. Everything went really well. The feedback has been really positive so far.
Okay, no, thank you. And no, by video, I attended the hiring session for the new CEO and just been hanging out.
Okay, any questions on any of the reports? Robin's going to move the reports.
Is Shane going to teach us all how to square dance now? I'm sure we can bring Cadillac Ranch up.
Questions, vote. That's all carried. 8.1, undeveloped road maintenance program. Ken?
Yes, through the chair. Before you is the undeveloped road program for the projects to approve for next year. The recommended motion is that council approve the 11 undeveloped road allowance maintenance requests, which meet policy R9 requirements, shown in the attached Schedule A at a cost of $160,000. I also have an alternate motion. If council so chooses that motion, and Schedule A also, but the council approved the 13 undeveloped road maintenance requests shown in Schedule A at a cost of $167,500, 11 meeting policy, and 2 that fall outside of policy. So just a little overview on these upgrade projects. The 2 that did not follow policy included a partially developed road touching that quarter, and it was only 400 meters long for that section of road, and at a cost of $3,500 or $4,000 for that one, sorry. And also another undeveloped road or trail that falls outside of the undeveloped road allowance at a cost of $3,500. And this one was previously approved in 2016 as an upgrade under the same program, so it's just tuning it up. So that's what I have for you today to decide.
Thank you. Madeleine?
To the chair, to Ken. I'm just wondering, my understanding is when we do this, that the road becomes public access? And that even if it's on private land?
Shouldn't be doing private land.
So
These aren't private.
we're up
land.
through,
Here's the man.
Go ahead, Ken. Your mic's off.
Through the chair. When it's in a government road allowance, undeveloped or developed, there is public access all the way through the province and those designated right-of-ways. Under this program, in the past, where, say, it goes outside of the road allowance, council may decide to include that section of road that goes on private property, but the landowner would have to agree, and in that case, a lease would have to be in place for that agreement to become, to allow a one landowner to go on another person's property kind of thing. So it is trespassing when there is nothing there. So usually those ones don't fall within this program, and council probably would have a hard decision approving that situation unless there was an agreement with the current landowner.
oh, thank you. Clarifying that, I should have been more detailed, but that's what I want to know. The other thing is do we have anything for emergency exits or for routes for emergency vehicles that go on private land or can be utilized?
Not that I recall any agreements that we have to go on private property unless it falls under the emergency services to access the house or driveway, fighting fires.
Dustin?
So just a question on the undeveloped road program. So we've been doing this for 4 years now, I think it is, or 5 maybe?
12 years.
Okay, whatever, however long, we've been doing it a while.
2016 when it came out.
Okay, well, whatever, however long we've been doing it. So when, I'm just looking, because essentially there's $70,000 left in the budget this year. And I know some of those roads that we have previously done, I know because I travel a lot of them. Is there an opportunity that we use those allocated funds to go back and do some improvements that staff or maintenance would find to touch up those other roads as well? Because I'm just looking, I know driving some of the ones that we've done in the past, some of them could use a touch up a little bit to make them better. Right? Not, pretty much grading and a little bit of graveling would be all they would need just to bring them back to what they were when we originally did them. So would that be something we could use that remaining budget for, is to go back and touch those ones we've done in the past up?
Through the chair, yes, I indicated that the remaining funds in place there. I think council can choose how they want to allocate those funds. If they wanted to add something past the deadline that, or policy, they have that ability, my understanding.
Shelley, you had a question?
I do. Well, the first one is, you've got a couple of them. The first one relates to that. Don't the landowners have to come and apply to get their roads touched up?
Yeah.
Is my first question.
Yeah, it's for agriculture purposes, and yes, the applicant would be the ratepayer or adjoining properties or accessing haystacks or anything like that, or fields past, but through the undeveloped road allowance. Yeah.
Thank you. My second question is this policy, or this one that doesn't meet policy, you said that it was done in 2016 and it needs touch-ups now. Did it meet policy then?
Through the chair, it would have been brought the same assessment. So at that time, it didn't fit policy, but it was under the budget, and council chose to include it. Similar situation in this case.
Thank you.
Shane?
Couple of things. First of all, with the excess budget, and we can put that other places instead of trying to do more of these roads. And I have a problem with my Saskatchewan arithmetic.
Saskatchewan.
On map number 11, I'm just trying to do the math here. what are we charging out for gravel? How much a ton? What are we charging out for grader work? How much an hour? And how much an hour for scraper? And with that scraper work, does that also include mobilization in and out? Because for that one is estimated cost at 12,000 for 1.7 kilometers. We got quite a bit of grader and scraper work. I'm just trying to figure all this out. So if you could give me some numbers, please. To Public Works, sorry.
Through the chair. Yeah, thank you for catching the estimated hours, the actual estimated hours on the one you mentioned. I made note at 15 hours of scraper work and 12 hours of grader work. So as far as the hourly rates for scraper, we do have heavy equipment contracts yearly with various contractors out there, and the approximate spread of the hourly rate quoted is around $400 an hour for a motor scraper and approximately $220 for a grader. Now, some of these get done in-house and some outside. So as far as the gravel, approximately $13 a ton.
Delivered to this?
Yeah, depends.
Delivered to the site?
It depends if we are delivering it ourselves or we get that contract. In most cases, in this case, we are hauling our own gravel to just try to minimize these costs down as much as possible. But sometimes those low spots need those the heavy equipment that we don't have, like the motor scrapers at $400 an hour.
And, but when you're figuring in these costs, mobilization of that scraper, which, you know, trucking, it's a big trucking bill, is that included?
It's included in our price,
Okay.
our contract price that we put out every year to get our hourly rates with all the contractors. And then we have the ability to pick and choose whoever's available at that time. So in that agreement, everything's all included. So there's no separate payments for mobilization.
No, all good. It's just, when I was reviewing this, I couldn't make sense out of map 11. Because there was only 12 hours and there was a lot of buggy and grader work and that, so it wasn't adding up to me.
A compliment to your keen eye of construction there.
Richard?
Just for clarification for me, on the last two items, we had over the one by 7 persons west of Robinson Coulee Road. So that's a private trail, so we don't do private trails. So that's why that didn't get included, that's my understanding. And then there's another one by 7 persons where the request was for grading, mowing, snow plowing, spraying, etc. Is there a house on that road, or is there a reason that we're not doing it? Is there a reason why they asked?
Yeah, so that road, the Township Road 120, it goes along the north side of that, and the existing developed road goes up more or less the majority, other than the 400 meters applied for. So there's a small connection piece that is in the request there to get year-round access on that and to have the year-round maintenance done on that as well. So that I've included it on the very last page there, and I broke out what the cost would be for year-round maintenance for that piece. So it would fall under snow plowing and be graded once a month. And sprayed for weeds. So that it's included there. So council has in that one, if they approve that one, then the additional maintenance would be on that yearly.
Okay, before we go to Shane, we're going to take a break from this. We'll come back to this because our delegation's online right now. So we'll just, do I have to table it or anything? Postpone it? I can just break from this and go table it. Okay. Do I have to have a motion for that? Do I have to have a motion to table it, Les, or just table it? Okay. Okay, we'll table that till after the delegation.
Are you able to hear us?
We sure can. Oh, can you hear us?
Yep, we can.
Great.
Is that Tui is coming in for this meeting?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Perfect. All right, sorry we're running a few minutes late, but I guess the floor is yours. Let's see. Go right ahead.
Thank you, Reeve. It's a pleasure to be with you and members of council today. My name is Paul Delay. I'm a managing director with Deloitte's Economic Advisory Practice. Joining me is Rebecca Taylor. She's also with the Economic Advisory Practice. We, along with a couple of others, have had the pleasure of working with Cypress County and 5 other municipalities on this project. We're going to review for you today the findings from the process of how we got here, and then the recommendations that have been made on a regional approach to economic development. Want to overall just say congratulations on taking this step with your neighbors. We're strong believers in regional approaches to economic development. It doesn't fit with all types of services, but it can be an extremely effective model for communities that may not have enough resources to go it alone, and also where multiple voices will help move the economic yardsticks forward, I guess, if you could say. So yes, this is our team, myself, Jamie, Rebecca, and Darcy. Those of you who participated in some of the activities would recognize our faces. Next slide, please. This is the steering committee. There was one representative of the steering committee from each of the 6 municipalities that participated. The bottom right is Alex Wright. She's not a steering committee member, but supported the administration and the administration and communication for the steering committee, and she works at the City of Medicine Hat. But there was equal participation, 1 vote, 1 member sort of approach, and a great group of people. Thank you to Beth for all the collaboration that she encouraged through the conversations that we had in the many meetings over this past many months. This is the project timeline, 4-phase project. We started earlier this year in 2024 and went through an integrated approach. I guess, these kinds of projects are pretty simple if you want to just sit down and write down a whole bunch of recommendations and say, this is what we think is best. It's a lot more complicated and it requires a softer, more sophisticated approach to engage a community and a region in this. But ultimately, by doing that, we end up at the end of a project with a series of recommendations and an action plan that has buy-in from the participants. And that's something you don't get when you run this through an AI and come up with the recommendations after a couple of weeks of thinking. This started with a number of engagements and went through a process of 2 summits. And those summits brought together all of the participants from across the region on a couple of occasions to look at first prioritizing the strategic directions for a regional approach to economic development, and then secondly, looking at the way to implement them. Next slide, please. Thank you. So through this process of what we heard, we also did, before the process of I guess, getting a lot of input, Our economic advisory team did an economic base analysis to offer some data on some very important points of demographics and of the economic situation in the region. They're available for a fulsome read in the report that you had in your agenda package, so won't go through these in the limited time that we have. But needless to say, the main point of this is that the data went forward to the community from the regional participants, and we asked them to ground truth it. You know, this is what the data said. Is this what's really happening in reality in the region? And is this your impression of what our forecasts say? Does it sound reasonable? Are these forecasts something that you can anticipate occurring in the region? Next slide. So there were, as I mentioned earlier, a number of opportunities for engagement and involving the broader community in this project. We first had community workshops in each municipality, so members of council, stakeholders, and private sector members in each of the municipalities were invited to a session. Darcy Acton was in Cypress County for that session back in March. Then we had meetings. Well, we engaged with service providers in a few different ways. We had a workshop that I was fortunate to attend, and there were about 15 people around that horseshoe from various economic development organizations and service providers, from Medicine Hat College through to the Community Futures Organization, as well as innovation and labor force groups. They all had representation there. We had a really good conversation about what is happening in terms of services that are being delivered and what isn't. So it gave us a sense of what gaps there were in the economic marketplace. And then I've described those two summits already. Broadly speaking, the regional opportunities lay out like this. I'm going to hand it over to Rebecca in a moment to get into more specifics. But we uncovered that there's a keenness on a number of fronts. First of all, for advocacy, for putting Southeast Alberta in front of senior levels of decision makers, thinking primarily province and federal levels of government, to advocate on behalf of the region so that you're making strong statements about what is needed to propel the economy forward, and putting evidence in front of them, fact-based evidence gathered reports and documents that prove a case that certain movements in spending or infrastructure development will move the economic needle forward in Southeast Alberta. There's also an interest in investment attraction, putting a common front face forward to the site selection community for incoming investment. Entrepreneurship and innovation, helping new entrepreneurs or those who are just getting started or moving their business to another level, the supports they need to grow and prosper in Southeast Alberta. Tourism development and marketing, visitor marketing, destination development. Business retention and expansion is about ensuring that the businesses that are already in Cypress County and in Southeast Alberta want to grow and expand in Cypress County and in Southeast Alberta, and understanding what is in their way to do that, what needs to be done to create an even better business environment. And then another broad sort of regional opportunity that we looked at was workforce development, which is, of course, assuring workforce is really one of the primary challenges that businesses are facing in today's economy and will be facing in tomorrow's economy. So doing what's necessary to ensure that those businesses are confident that the right people will be available to them that will help them grow and add employment and tax base to the economy. Now hand it over to Rebecca for, as I said, a little more specific look at the opportunities.
Thanks, Paul. So the recommended priorities and initiatives that we've worked to reveal, they're very narrow in scope, And that's because we want to make sure that the efforts are highly focused and that they're incremental to the everyday economic development functions that are already carried out by the organizations and municipal departments. So we're not looking to duplicate what's already happening by the many, many economic development service providers. We're looking for what's going to make a big difference and enhance. These are also all measurable so that we can set goals and measure progress over time. So you'll see that we have two types of priorities. There's foundational priorities and sector priorities. And those foundational priorities cross all sectors, and they're related to, they build success for all the other priorities, while those that are related to the sectors, they really offer the highest potential for growth, economic diversification, and prosperity for the region. So looking at each of those sets, so the foundational priorities are the ones that are essential to economic growth and diversification in Southeast Alberta, and they influence every other sector. So regional collaboration in these two priority areas will leverage and support the ongoing efforts of existing economic development service providers. And these are going to be initiatives that don't easily fit with the mandate or resources of any one service provider, but are more well suited to a regional approach. So we're looking at talent attraction and development, industry driven, but regionally coordinated. And then aligning service delivery and speaking with a unified voice. So this speaks to both how businesses navigate through all of the different service organizations, and it also speaks to the advocacy role that Paul was talking about. When we look at the sectors, the three sectors of focus that really bring the most opportunity for Southeast Alberta are aerospace and defense, agri-food, and tourism. And by concentrating regional efforts and resources on these sectors, this will provide the greatest opportunity to drive regional prosperity and growth and maximize employment and the investment benefits that Paul also mentioned. And so we identified these through an economic analysis and regional engagements. Southeast Alberta, as you know, has Canada's largest restricted commercial airspace dedicated to beyond visual line of sight drone test flights. It also has a research lab operated by Canada's Defence Agency for Defence Research and Development over at CFB Suffield. And there's significant airside and groundside business development potential happening at Medicine Hat Airport. So it is a prime location for the aerospace and defense sector, and there is substantial opportunity to grow that sector. Agriculture and agri-food, big sector in Cypress County. And so transformation of the agriculture and agri-food sector is driven by the increase in global demand for plant-based proteins, advancements in agri-food technologies, and challenging weather patterns. Three key areas of opportunity that we see arising from these global forces are export development, agribusiness investment attraction, and agriculture technology. And then we know Southeast Alberta is a region rich in natural beauty, cultural heritage, and unique experiences. So investing in the infrastructure and developing new tourism experiences will allow the region to increase visitor spend and stay when they come. So when we look at the action plan that comes out of these, what are we going to do to build these sectors? We have 17 initiatives that align with those 5 priority areas. And I want to emphasize that these are really ambitious actions that would not likely be achievable without regional collaboration. The development of this strategy was informed by input and engagement with dozens of service providers, business leaders, elected officials, educators, and industry stakeholders. And their expertise and enthusiasm that led to the development of this plan are going to be needed to carry out the regional initiatives that we recommend. One of the summits that we held was really interesting. It was the second summit, and that summit was attended by by the service providers and municipal leaders. And our objective there was really to identify ways to work together. So how are we going to make this thing work? How are we going to make decisions? How are we going to measure progress as we carry out these actions? And we started by looking at the local and global forces that will be acting as disruptors in Southeast Alberta and identifying the opportunities and challenges that might come out of those global or local forces. Then we made up some potential projects based on those opportunities and challenges. And the exercise of creating those projects led to some realizations on how best to work together on a regional level. So it informed some framework options that we then compiled and present in the implementation framework. And I'm going to hand it back over to Paul right now to talk a little bit about the implementation framework recommendations that we came up with based on that summit.
Thank you, Rebecca. Yes, the implementation framework is broken out into four categories: strategy, governance, organization, measurement, and reporting. And these were all discussed with the steering committee as options were developed and then presented to the steering committee for a full discussion on best approach. When it comes to governance, it's important to note that we're not calling on the creation of a new organization, a corporation or a separate commission, or anything that is detached and run separately. The collaboration has been great, and so the steering committee really does want to retain the nature of the 6 local governments continuing to work together to guide the completion of the action plan over the course of the next several years. When it comes to the organization itself, there's the initiatives can be carried out through the establishment of working groups. We know that there's enthusiasm behind all of the activities. You know, there's particularly local enthusiasm around the agriculture and agri-food food initiative as well. So having a lead organization or 2 co-lead organizations to manage the implementation and the administration behind the activities is quite critical, keeping the momentum going. If the working groups could be supplemented with expertise that's relevant to the opportunity, whether it's a private sector business leader in the community or another civic community leader, those would be very beneficial to ensuring that the committee stays focused on the opportunities at hand. And this strategy is as good as the day as it's printed, and things are going to change. And so having that kind of expertise on hand at the steering committee level will allow the initiative to be flexible and adapt to new realities that create opportunities or challenges. The steering committee thought it was most beneficial to establish an annual contribution that partner communities would contribute. And a significant benefit to this is knowing ahead of time what budget is available for a year or two allows funding applications to go forward to external agencies, and allows the group to leverage the amount of funding that's available to them. I think the next next couple of slides go on to display this in a concrete sense. We're looking at a possible total investment value of over $900,000 when it comes to the types of actions that are identified in the action plan over the course of 5 years. If you look at the kinds of contributions that would be made by each individual municipality, actually go back to the next slide, the previous slide. Thanks, Rebecca, appreciate it. You know, a contribution of $60,000 on an annual basis by the municipalities is doubled in application to a provincial funding program. And then those two $60,000 pooled for a $120,000 leverage in a federal government application, results in $240,000 being made available to the municipalities based on a $60,000 investment. So that's, a 400% increase in leverage when it's based on the entire municipality or entire region. Each municipality, of course, is contributing less than $60,000. So the contributions that Cypress County, for instance, would make would be leveraged far beyond the 400%. So the amount of value that you would be getting for the contribution you're making is exceptional. The next several slides go into the math behind trying to identify how to establish what each municipality would put in. We presented a number of options to the steering committee, including everyone contributes $10,000. The next one is an amount based on the municipality's non-residential assessment. So Cypress is a municipality that has 51% of the region's non-residential assessment in 2022, would contribute 51% of the $60,000, which is $26,460. Another option that was presented is a population-based option. And in this case, the city of Medicine Hat, with over 75% of the 2023 population, would contribute the vast majority of the distribution or the contribution to the overall distribution. And then where the steering committee landed was really coming up with a mix to create a bit more of an equitable distribution of payments. So it was a weighted calculation that was drawn up from defining a portion of that amount, a set base amount, so everyone's contributing at least something, and then a weighted amount based on non-residential assessment and a weighted amount based on population. So in this in the suggestion made by the steering committee, recommendation made by the steering committee, you can see that Cypress County and Medicine Hat would contribute $22,700 per year. And the more rural or smaller urban municipalities would contribute the remainder of the $15,000 to make up the $60,000. And I'm actually back to Rebecca now for a couple of closing slides, please.
Thanks a lot, Paul. So one thing that's important, I think every council wants to make sure, how are we going to measure progress? How are we going to know that we're reaching our goals? So every single one of the initiatives in the action plan is tied to a performance measure. These are some examples of those. This isn't all of them, but it gives you some examples of the different types of performance measures that we are recommending so that we know if the initiative was successful or if adjustments need to be made. This also fosters transparency and it allows for effective communication between partners, and it provides a basis for reporting as well and sharing updates on the outcomes of the economic development initiatives. And the last thing before we turn it over to you for questions is next steps. So there's still some things that need to be done. Finalizing some of those decisions on governance, that recommendations have been made, but the group needs to finalize some of those decisions. Confirm financial commitments from each council, identify partners and collaborators. So those are the organizations and individuals outside of that core group of 6 people on the steering committee, and activating the working groups, getting those groups up and running and carrying out the actions in the plan. So that's it for us. We'd like to take the opportunity now to answer any questions that you might have or provide more information where you might need it.
Okay, thank you. Anybody got any questions? Richard?
Morning. Also the chair of Verge Economic Development. I'd like the direction that this steering committee has gone. I read that presentation over, and I was impressed with what she came up with and some ideas on how we can move forward and get some results. So I personally support this continuing on. I think there'll be some good things happening. I think you'll see that the existing committees that are out there, like Verge, and I'm looking at the smaller municipalities, everybody will still probably do something in their own lane, but this way we are going to be more aware of what's going on in the surrounding area, and I think we will definitely have a bigger voice. If I have any comments to make on what I saw, it would be, I would like to see you have some pictures of the little hamlet, the smaller municipalities too. Like great pictures, you've got a couple of City Hall, and this is regional. So if that could be balanced out, I think that would be much appreciated. So, but other than that, great report.
Thank you, Councillor Osler.
Robin?
Hi, everybody. It's Robin Kirpywhite here, Ward 4 Councillor. What I'm curious about is some of the cost-sharing methodology, and specifically with regards to the non-residential assessment. I understand why that would be an attractive one to pick, but it's kind of a fairly arbitrary number when it's not balanced off with expenses and anything else like that. If we're looking at big numbers to justify additional costs, I'm curious whether or not we're including the City of Medicine Hat's energy division and what they generate in revenue, and that, like, we both kind of have our golden gooses, and the when it comes down to our linear assessment, that a lot of that goes towards graveling roads and a huge amount of our public works budget. So, we could have just as easily put the total budget numbers in there if we wanted to, justify why we felt that another partner should be paying more. I'm curious as to how that number correlates with the measurable results that we're anticipating with some of these different things. Tourism is an interesting one for the county. We can talk about, bringing people into the region and having local spend, but really, like, if we spent $100,000 in tourism, having an actual report that shows how much of that spent in what areas. We don't have hotels. We don't have a lot of tourist-based businesses. We have public parks. We have, Red Rock Coulee. We have 3 or 4 businesses that thrive on tourism, and that doesn't correlate with the funding models at all. One other question, and sorry, there's a lot of heavy-hitting questions here, so I'm hoping that you can kind of take them and come back at some point. But no, you know what? I'm going to leave it at that one because there's enough to chew on with that. So that was kind of where I wanted you to kind of have a look at, is where is the measurable impact best seen right now, and how does that impact individual partners within the partnership?
Thanks, Councillor Kirpywhite. I'll start off with the response, and Rebecca, please feel free to add to it. I think that when it comes to the regional initiatives and pulling out tourism as one that may not benefit Cypress County to as much of a degree as the other municipalities, each of the challenge with regional initiatives is that each community is sort of in that situation where a particular one of the particular initiatives, some portion of the particular initiatives may not benefit them to as much of a degree as others. We're hoping that municipal councils see the balance in this, and that there is definitely something for everybody, and hopefully not just something, but some things for everybody. And that there will be, the performance indicators that Rebecca presented will show good value across the board to some degree for each of the partners who contributed funds.
Yeah, okay, thank
yeah.
you. We don't mind that it's a delegation, so it's good. Everybody's kind of giving you some ideas to bring back, and we'll let you and the staff work it out and bring it back at a future council meeting. Is there any other suggestions or any other thoughts and want to be brought forward? Okay, do you have any final thoughts or anything to say there?
Other than to say, again, thank you, Reeve Hamilton, members of council, for the opportunity to present and for offering Beth to the steering committee and us being able to move forward with the project. Thank you.
Great. Thank you very
Thanks
much.
so much. It's been a pleasure working with you. Thanks.
Have a Merry Christmas. Thank you very much.
You too. Thanks. See you.
Okay, we'll take a 5-minute break and then we'll everybody's here.
Sometimes that happens.
Okay, I tabled the 8.1 undeveloped road allowance, and Shane, I ended with you.
Yes. Just a word, my thoughts. We cannot start mowing, snow plowing, spraying, because we're gonna open up a big can of worms. Everybody will want it. We gotta stick to policy. Another thing about, sure, we're under budget, but Ken and his staff do a really good job of looking at these jobs, but we gotta remember, when we look at the sheet, is it just an estimate? And estimates at times can go over or under, but I'd rather err on the side of caution and have a little bit of extra in case something pops up when they're doing stuff, or there is all of a sudden something more spring flooding where we have to do something a little extra. We got funds. Just because we're under budget doesn't mean we got to spend it, and that's my thought.
I agree totally.
Blaine.
I agree as well, and I'll make the motion that we do the 11 undeveloped road maintenance ones that meet policy.
Perfect. So we have a motion on the floor that we're doing 11 undeveloped road maintenance requests. Any other questions on it? Not seeing any. Vote. That's carried. 8.2, Steve.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. It's the Perk and Dirk update. This should seem familiar. It's the Provincial Education and Requisition Credit and the Designated Industrial Requisition Credit. It's basically when council, if they choose to write these taxes off, we will get this amount reduced from the amount we owe in school taxes to the province, as well as the Designated Industrial Property Assessment Requisition. Recommended motion is that council direct administration to complete the PERC application in the amount of $46,331.49 and the designated industrial requisition credit DIRC application in the amount of $1,895.10 for all properties listed in the schedule.
Dustin? Yeah. Pretty standard, do it every year. Any questions? Vote. Carried. 8.3, Joe?
This is a request that came through from council last time, was for the fire chief to come and answer any questions about the AFRAX radio request. We have put a motion in for council to direct administration to purchase the remaining AFRAX radios in 2025 at a cost not exceeding $255,000. This reflects increasing our purchasing frequency, so instead of over the next 4 years, we'd be doing all AFRAX radios in the next year. And our fire chief is here to answer any questions.
Okay, thank you. Just to give you a little background on what the comments were, is some were saying if we order them all at once, they all break down at the same time, or technology changes. Maybe we get better ones in a year or two. That was some of the comments going around, just so you have a heads up. Does anybody have any questions for Jason? Shane?
Yes, Jason. Why do you want, just explain to me why you think it is necessary to have get them all at once this year, and just convince me why you want to do it.
Through the chair, that request did come through council as a council question. Last year, we put forward a 5-year plan to phase them over 5 years. Previous fire administration tried to purchase radios and it was denied just with the unproven technology and everything. So last year I wanted to try it again. Administration agreed, and we thought if we did a 5-year plan, it wouldn't be such a burden all at one time, and we could phase them in.
Yeah, but now you're asking for it all in 1 year. Oh,
So that I had brought this forward when we had budget questionings. So when the reason I brought it forward, and I'll ask Jason to kind of carry on what I'm saying here, but, so essentially this year Elkwater was going to be the ones that got AFRAX radios. So the problem I see when we have been doing, or we're going to do this in staggering increments like this, is the technologies work together, but they don't work together perfectly. So essentially, we're running two different radio networks, and we're patching them back together. So our UHF, what we're using currently, is we'll take and have a layover patch through, essentially, it's in Dunmore here, there's two radios that sit and talk, and they correlate it back and forth. But the issue being, and actually, I'll let you explain this, Jason, because you can probably explain it better than I can, how the patch and the delays and all that stuff work.
Sure. So through the chair, AFAX is a provincially funded program, like the infrastructure, so it's not on any of our towers at all. It's a digital system, and our VHF system is owned, operated, run by Cypress County off a server here at the county office. And then we do have an AFAX radio and a VHF radio at the Dunmore station, which link the two systems together. But it is really scratchy. So like, for example, when Medicine Hat does the 8 Mile dual response zone, they book on with our dispatch center. They're fully AFRAX, but they have to use our bridge, and the communication is really scratchy and it's hard. So that's one example. Yeah, it's just off of two different systems. So the plan this year was to have Elkwater and Hilda on it. So we want to do the remote areas that have the worst VHF communications done first, and then we'll move in. Was the original plan last year.
Richard?
so, yeah, not to discuss good or bad the radios. Is it in the budget? Are you going to be asking for more money, or is this in the 2025 budget now? Like, do we have to come up with, do we have to come up with some more funds, or are the funds there in the fire services budget?
So the funds are not currently in the reserve, the fire vehicle and equipment reserve. So it would be a strain, but with the then replacement, do we know what the age lives of those are going to be? Sorry. So 10 to 12 years, that now we will start to fund the purchase of them, and we will fund the replacement of them.
Okay. I understand what you guys are doing. I think it's actually a great idea. I just want to know where the money's coming from. That's more our job as counselors to look at the policy and where the money's coming from, not if it's a good radio or a bad radio or whatever, so.
Blade?
Through the chair, just one other thing with that is historically when we bought radios, when I first started, we didn't even know how many radios we had in inventory. So we got them all back. We did some reprogram. We did have an inventory, and we had some stations had some really old radios. So we have inventory of what we had, but the radios we had were never funded replacement. I don't know how we bought them in the past, but we're going to do things right with those purchases. There'll be a capital asset, and we will fund them properly. And typically they're about 15 years with our usage. They don't see a lot of high heat, a lot of fires. So we should, on all of our equipment, just not radios or bunker gear or apparatus, we should always go to the full life cycle just because of the usage because of our call volume.
Okay, so for clarification, it's coming out of reserves? Okay. So the money's there, we're okay with it, and then you'll build the reserves up again.
The money's not there.
The money's not there. It's in, okay.
Money's not in the budget. That's why earlier I brought up about the reserves.
And it's not in the reserves. It's never been allocated to the reserves. We have to start doing that. Yes, but not one that's.
Thanks.
Unallocated expenditures, I think is what you call that.
Well, yeah, but that one runs out eventually too. Blaine?
Well, to follow up with Richard's question, that was my question as well, because I don't want it to detriment any other foreseen, projects going forward by doing this. So if it's not quite in the budget, I'm not sure how we, other than taking out of reserves, but then if we have to do some other projects, we're going to be taking more of the reserves. So I guess my other question is, and you kind of answered somewhat, there's no real disadvantage of phasing them in. Like you said, you'd put these strategically in the bad area spots, and then as we get more, we'll branch them out. Is that right?
Through the chair, we can make it work. It's not ideal because some stations will be off AFAX dispatch channel and other stations will be off the VHF dispatch channel. We'll use that bridge, but it's not ideal. For example, a lot of Dunmore's calls are to support other stations. Dunmore is one of the last ones to get the AFAX system because the VHF works good around here. So Dunmore is going to be using a bridge system up until 5 years, and then they'll be booked on. It's confusing for the firefighters. If they're staying in the Dunmore response zone, they're going to be booking on with a VHF system. If they're booking on to go to Hilda or Elkwater, they're going to be booking on with the AFAX system because that's what the system that those stations will be having. So we can make it work, but it's not ideal.
Okay, so to confirm, I'm just going to confirm something. To confirm this year's budget for whatever radios it was in the budget for this year. So what you're asking for, you could get by for one more year if we wanted to stay in budget and have the budget change for next year to bring all 4 more years in instead of 3 more years in. And then we wouldn't be doing straining on anything. Everything would be staying in budget. Correct? Okay, just a thought. Okay, Robin?
So emergency services is not necessarily the one place that I want to be seeing us trying to pinch pennies, creating potential confusion in that moment. Is there the potential with utilizing the bridge that in that confusion it can cost us a few minutes in a crucial call? Because at the end of the day, we're going to be pulling from a reserve of some sort before we're able to fund it in advance anyways. And so I'm just curious as to, with this right here, if this is something that could potentially create enough confusion to cost us a few minutes. I believe that that is a big deal in your world.
Through the chair, it is a possibility. I think it's very low, but it is a possibility. I just got to be honest that the biggest error could be if dispatches on the wrong frequency, then one station may not get it. That'd be more of the dispatch center's fault than ours, but that could happen.
Keith?
So, a couple of questions, a couple of observations. I use an AFRAX radio, so I understand the value of it. I have no problem buying more radios. I understand the split system. We use it. It's not ideal, but we make it work. The only question I have is at the last council meeting, we approved the update to the fire hall and kind of put this at a lower priority. So I'm just trying to balance that out in my mind, because I really think the improvement to the fire hall and the training was probably a higher priority for myself than speeding up this process. If this can wait one more year and we can really concentrate on the expansion in the fire hall, I think that was, in my mind, coming away from last council meeting, that was my impression. So that's just something to think on.
So the fire hall was in the budget. That's what we approved. Yeah. And the radios, 1 year of radios was in the budget. That's what we approved. Okay. This was an ask by Councillor Vossler to do all of the years this year and look for funds to do it. So now everybody's wondering which way to go with it. But Shane, or do you have another question on it?
No, I just want a clarification on that.
Yeah.
That's all.
Yeah, correct, that it was in the budget for the,
The motion was we approved the budget without any radios, waiting on this discussion. So if council just wants to continue with the 1 year, perhaps the recommended motion would be to approve the 1 year, and we'll build that back into the budget.
took them all out?
We approved it without the radios. Awaiting this conversation.
That's the reason.
Right. So, but was the money originally in the budget for the first year of the radios?
The first round of radios was in the budget, the 2025 capital budget for the fleet and vehicle replacement. It showed up there. Council approved that budget amended, excluding the radios, anticipating this conversation, and then administration would take direction to get the remaining 4 years or just the 1 year.
Okay, but the 1 year is still sitting there floating around,
No,
waiting.
awaiting council's direction.
Because it was originally in the budget.
It was in the budget. It was approved as though we removed it.
Here we go. Glad Paul's back. I'm trying to get it verified for everybody.
Okay, so through the chair, what we did in the last council meeting with regards to the capital budget, we approved the capital budget without any of the radios. So the 63,750 that was in the document,
63,000?
yeah, 63,750 was in the, if you, in the approved capital budget under the vehicle and equipment placement plan, we took the 63,750 out, subject to having the chief come and have a discussion with respect to whether you fund it for 63,750, which is 1 year, and subsequent years after that would be 6370 for the next 3, or to actually fund it for 255,000, which would be all 4 years in 2025. So we took the AFRAX out, subject to this discussion, so that council can either say, we approve 1 year at 63,750, or we'll approve all 4 years, or subject to council discretion.
So at the end of the day, we're going to be building a reserve for this project to replace them anyways. And we're 63, so we're 190,000 short. And I've been sitting on the fence, but I think that we should just build them all in, buy them now, and build our reserves backwards. And then there'd be no confusion in-house with these radios.
Keith?
How much does each radio cost? I just want to know.
I know our handheld ones are I think they were $3,500 all in. I can't remember what the mobile or the track mounted ones were.
That's not for us to figure out.
No, I'm done.
Shane?
All right. I really think that if we're going to do it, we buy them all this year, because like Robin said, at times miscommunication can be costly. And all it takes is that one little split second. For somebody that has been out and fought prairie fires, and that all of a sudden you got a flare up behind you, the wind shifted, we got issues. All of a sudden everybody's not on the same radios, then we got an issue. So when we're talking just $250,000, or can we mean somebody's life? And that, I think we better have a second look. But I do recommend to our chief that maybe next year you'll have to take $250,000 out of your budget, you know, to kind of bring it down a bit, your request.
That's what I was gonna say.
But we are building up the reserves, and that's what I brought up before, about that we gotta start looking at building reserves up more for certain situations. All of a sudden, we have a fire, and somebody gets caught, and we lose a fire truck. You know, what happens then? Just, you know, certain situations. But I really feel for safety, and seeing that 40 Mile, the county of Newell, our surrounding biggest counties are on it. I don't know about, how about up to the north special areas. But anyways, it doesn't matter that conservation officers, everybody else is on it. It's really, I feel it's really important that they're all on the same communication level. And we can pull it out of reserves and build that reserves back up. That it's just not a free gift, that we gotta take it from somewhere and build that reserve back up.
Lloyd?
Well, Shane just took everything I was gonna say, because I honestly believe that communications is one of the most important things when you're in an emergency situation. We've had the Big Hilda fire, and next year, as the weather stays the same, we're gonna have more fires and might even be bigger, so I'll make the motion that we purchase them all this year.
Michelle? Say what you gotta say.
I was just going to ask, is there a cost savings for if you buy them all at once versus of 5 years or 4 years, whatever?
Through the chair, there's two ways to look at it. That we'll have price guarantees. Typically, stuff is always going up, so our per unit cost might go up. So it might have, if we use the 63750 every year, we might actually, lose one handheld, for example, just because of the inflation cost. So that is one risk. There will be some savings with installation and programming all at the same time. So there are advantages and disadvantages all at the same time. So one could almost overweight the other. From a human capital standpoint, which is I think a lot of times we forget, is the logistics of doing stuff, and that's from an emergency services standpoint. Have them all done at once from an administration standpoint would be a lot more prudent and functional. But again, last year we were happy with the win to get them over 5 years, so at least we have a plan versus having no plan at all.
So are you going to be able to get them all this year, or are they going to be all on back order and you're not going to see them until next year anyhow?
Through the chair, so if we approve this, we'll order them, or we'll put out to tender in early 25. We ordered the first batch 3 months ago, late August, and they should be arriving this week. So what we want to do is we want to get the first batch in. We want to make sure that they work. We're happy with that vendor. And before we do anything, we will make sure that the first batch works. We like them, and then we'll execute on the purchase of the next one either way.
What's the question? Okay, the motion on the floor is to buy them all in 2025, cost of $255,000. Lloyd made that. Yeah, I don't like your hand being up.
Sorry. And then if Steve can just say where the money's coming from?
Yeah, to be funded from the fire vehicle and equipment replacement plan. Reserve.
The empty file.
Soon to be empty, if not now.
All right. So the next fire truck that's ordered is going to be minus a tire because you spent all the money this year. Okay, vote. I'm not scared. That's carried. 8.4. Leslie Ann.
Thank you through the chair. So as we know, the next municipal election will take place on October 20th, 2025, with nominations opening on January 1st of this year. So the natural next step is to appoint a returning officer and a substitute/deputy returning officer. So the motion before council today is that council appoint Sean Rooney as the returning officer and Leslie Ann Collins as a substitute, in brackets, deputy returning officer under the Local Authorities Election Act.
Okay, Richard's moving that. Oh, Keith is, sorry. I just heard all move beside me.
The other gray-haired guy. We all look alike.
Any questions on it? Vote.
Yeah.
It's carried. 8.5, Steve?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is one of the least favorite things we do at a municipality when we establish reserve bids and tax auction conditions for outstanding taxes. Recommended motion, there's two parts. The council moved to set the terms and conditions of the 2025 property tax recovery auction as the sale is complete upon payment via cash check, certified check or bank draft. Payment must be received 21 days following the date of auction. That's the first one. Second one is that council moved to set the reserve bids for the 2025 property tax auction in Schedule A. I'll just remind council that administration does absolutely everything in our powers, whether that's entering into agreements or making arrangements with the people with outstanding arrears. As the last thing we want to do is to sell people's homes.
Thank you. Robin?
How many times have we actually gotten to the auction? Like I know that to get to this point, we're following process and procedure. Once somebody gets a notice that their house is going to be auctioned off and to settle their debts, I think that is a pretty good motivator. How many times do we actually get to the auction on a property?
Well, we get to the auction. Quite often, the previous owner either doesn't exist or have come across a really troubling set of circumstances where we can't track them down, or they're not on their feet. But someone that's actively living in their home that we can get a hold of, in contact with, I don't recall ever selling one. Somebody that we can get in contact, we've never not been successful getting them on a program.
Okay, since Robin had the first question, he is number one. Any more questions on it? Vote. Carried. Michelle's moving the second one. Councilors, or that council set the reserve bids for 2025 tax auction. Any questions? Vote. That's carried. 8.6, Leslie Ann.
Thank you. This is just a cleanup to satisfy the library legislative advisor. The recommendation is to pass the following motion appointing these members. They didn't like it in the attached schedule. He would like a motion. So this is my recommendation.
You held that very well, Leslie Ann. I'm impressed. We were expecting something a little better than that. Who wants to move that wording? Blaine? No questions on it. Vote. Carried. There you go, dear. Merry Christmas. 8.7. Leslie Ann.
Thank you through the chair. Typically, administration notices a significant decrease in business and correspondence from the province through the holiday season. So it's our recommendation that, and since our budget has been approved, it's our recommendation that council cancels the regular council meeting scheduled for December 17th and January 7th, and reschedule the January 21st meeting to January 14th, meaning one meeting in December, which is today, and one meeting in January on the 14th. That's an MPC date, but MPC has graciously said that they would juggle their dates for council.
Right. Lloyd's making, oh,
Can we quickly check with Lisa to make sure that there's no Ag Service Board convention that week?
It falls from the 20th to the 22nd, Councillor Hawk.
Okay, thanks, I didn't read that, sorry.
oh, that's right there in the write-up there.
Yeah, I didn't read that part.
Lloyd's making the motion. Any questions on it? Vote. That's carried. 8.8, Mike and Steve.
In the interest of time, Mr. Chairman, would you like to do the request for decision on chief administrative and get those two out of the way? I think we may need more time for the discussion on Irvin.
Okay, so 8.9 we'll jump to.
Thank you, through the chair. With council's announcement last week, they have chose Al Hogan as the CAO effective January 6th. So as part of the Municipal Government Act, every council must appoint one person to carry out the duties and functions of the CAO. So the recommended motion is that council appoint Al Hogan to carry out the powers, duties, and functions of the Chief Administrative Officer effective January 6th, 2025.
Dustin's moving that. Any questions? Vote. That's carried. Okay, the next one is a three-part. Mike, do you want to take it? Or who's doing it? Mike or Leslie?
Thank you. So with the previous motion, with council appointing Al Hogan, and with interim CAO Mike here, we're recommending that council terminate the contract with interim Chief Administrative Officer Mike Kojo at the end of day, Friday, December 20th, 2024. Since we'll be without a CAO from the 20th to the 6th of January, the council appoint Ken Jacobs as acting CAO from December 21st to the 28th, and that council appoint Joe Cartwright as acting from the 29th to the 5th. No slight on Director Taves, but I think he has quite a bit of vacation time he needs to use. So.
Yeah, I was going to verify that. Because when this discussion came up, I was originally going to divide it three ways for everybody, but Mike informed me that he told Steve to go home. Robin?
Thank you, Mr. Reeve. I'm happy to make recommended motion number 1 with a grateful heart to Mike. Thank you very much for helping us out for the last few months. It's been nice to get to know you, and we appreciate everything that you did.
Any questions on that? Not seeing any. Vote. Carried. Need somebody to, Keith is making motion number 2 to add Ken from, what the heck is the dates there?
21st to the 28th of December.
Yep. Any questions? Vote. Okay. Carried. Lloyd's making the 3rd to make Joe from the 29th to the 5th of January, interim CAO. Joe Cartwright, I should say the whole name. Acting, yeah. You don't want to be the CAO? Vote. Okay, that's carried. Okay, can we wrap this other one up in 10 minutes? Sure we can.
What you want to do? Mr. Chairman, I'll introduce this then, if you're ready.
Yep.
Thank you. 1 week ago, Tuesday, November 26th, I attended a meeting with all three Cypress County directors, Planning Supervisor Kayleen Brown, representatives of Meadowlands, and Sheffer Andrew. We discussed a wide range of possible land development options, including storage yard, farmer's market, campground, tiny homes, ranch-style homes on large lots, manufactured home park, ready-to-move homes, and of course, the sale of lots for new home construction. Administration has some more information for you, but my takeaway from that meeting was that no one is beating a path to our door to develop these lots. Mr. Taves, you want to take a run?
And now that it's been handed over to me, you know that it's not good news. So what I had done is when we met with industry, we had some ideas, and some of the ideas had repeated the internal ideas. So what I had done is I'd gone through a pro forma, and what a pro forma is, it's an extended period of time, and we look at the cash that's going to come in, and we look at the cash that went out for our investment. That's the basis of a pro forma. So the three type scenarios that we went through, first one is the north 15 lots. The high level engineering estimate was for about $2 million to get things upgraded. That includes upgraded to the county standard. That investment, so part of the problem alone is outlaying that $2 million. Because we're going to forego the interest we make on that $2 million, it's about $80,000 a year. Lot prices in the area could sell for a maximum of about $40,000. So we'd need to sell 2 lots to be able to cover just the interest of the cash outlay alone. So it's not a good news story selling the lots and developing it to the county standard. We could relax the standard, but that gets tricky of what we're saying to other developers that we're holding accountable to that standard. So in the scenario 1 of selling lots, we would be over a 15-year performance would be about negative 2.5 million. Now we also looked at the opportunity or the consideration of doing a land rent, so where we continue to own the land and we would have people move in ready to move homes, and we would keep ownership of the land, but we'd rent it out. And so I started out with a land rent of about 800. It's probably in the ballpark of what the market would pay, and again, it would need about that $2 million of upgrade. We're servicing that debt. We're losing about $80,000 of interest. So again, this one, if we were in kind of that $2,500 a month, we could break even over 15 years. But basically, us owning the land over a 15-year return, we lose about $1.5 million. The campground, I've made some assumptions here. There's 70 campsites. I've made some assumptions that we could rent. I use Joe as our subject matter expert camper. And so, what did I write? I think we landed on about a $45 per night. I did some research, and occupancy of campgrounds is about 68%. For tenting sites, it's about 25% occupancy. So there's some well-established rates. And with a campground over a 50-year pro forma, we would lose about $400,000 in a campground type scenario. Based on that, the campground build out was a little bit less. It was $800 less than the 14 lot subdivisions, but that would then include the entire. And so that, again, that loses $393,000 performance. That's over 50 years. And the difference with the campsite is that we still have to service that debt, and we lose about $79,000, or we forego earning interest of about $79,000 there. But when we have a campground, we're going to be introducing operation costs and I estimated about $125,000 to operation costs. You know, we got to pick up garbage every day, and the grass has to get mowed, and all these types of things. I might have been a little bit light on there, but what I tried to do is the all in type costs. But so again, it kind of comes down to, and I'll wrap this up here, but it doesn't, at this time, it doesn't look like the land is, it's going to return us money. So really, I guess at the end of the day, council would have to accept what other benefits are available through development or the other type things. And if council sees that as a win, it's okay that it's not profitable, but we'd probably try to establish a social benefit of some form equal to the amount of money that the pro forma would say.
Well, that's
Good to know.
it in a nutshell. Robin?
Thanks, Mr. Eve, and thank you, Steve. I guess the hard question I want to ask, and this might be a question that we need to have later on, but everything that you just brought forward, I think we could make the similar argument to almost any development in our hamlets. And so that makes me nervous, because do we need to be having specific strategic conversations about kind of maintaining? It's almost like, you know, when you have a sick elderly parent and you have the conversation of do not resuscitate. Like what is the long term with these communities when it comes down to delivery of service? I do think that this is probably a bigger conversation for another day. But you know, you said like the social impact or social well-being of the community, you know, it's basically a municipally, I'm thinking about that campground, it's a municipally funded economic development experiment almost, because, you know, for those months you'd have coffee shops that would have, you know, the potential of having increased customers, and, you know, you look at even Maple Creek in the summertime with the traffic that comes through and stays. Now, is there going to be enough? And at a certain point, those businesses, like, what's that going to look like if the station doesn't exist? So I think we just need to have that real conversation at some point in the new year.
I think it's part of our plan of sitting around and chatting, but I think it's been brought up so many times that staff put something together to say, hey, this isn't going to work on what we've brought in because we kick it around here all the time. Can we do this? Can we do that? Well, these are hard numbers telling us this isn't going to work. So both right.
Yeah.
Yes, we need to take it to another level of strategic talking.
Yeah, like the realities of it, right? Like, you know, have we looked at all the options so much? Did you guys in those researches, did you have a chance to look at like those tiny home communities? I know in Calgary, Edmonton, they're doing some for veterans, you know, trying to provide affordable living, and, you know, you're running off of septic tanks and cisterns and things like that versus municipal infrastructure, which is going to have a way different. That's really the only other thing I can think of that, you know, beyond that, I think it's you move on and you don't bring it back anymore.
Probably the hardest thing is the extraordinary cost of infrastructure. The land prices, depending on the scale and that type of thing, land prices need to be a minimum of $100,000 to $220,000 to really be able to afford the infrastructure and then have the sale of the land pay for that infrastructure. That's where, and I'm not just pointing something out, the developers can go in and they can install that infrastructure in where the market wants it and where it's profitable. You know, Desert Bloom, prime example. Dunmore's another prime example. But when we start to look into the outlying, the outer regions, you know, sometimes when the country residential doesn't have those large infrastructure costs, that's where it makes sense to build that residential development, to do it at the right price, because they don't have those extreme infrastructure costs. The developer can be one and done. They install the development, they sell it. Guess who pays for the replacement of the infrastructure, right? It's back to the county, so they don't have to put that into their pro forma. So that's one reason why the county, if we're doing the all-in cost, why it doesn't make sense is going to be the funding of the replacement of those.
Hard to get 120 when we were offered 10. So. No, we don't. Mike. Go ahead, Mike.
Mr. Chairman, council will remember my last council meeting as where I delivered this bad news.
Mike did it. Go ahead, Blaine.
Well, the reason I brought this forward is to get those hard numbers so the that we all knew and the public knows where we're at with, where this land development, or this, not development, but this land, this acreage that is county owned, so that, you know, we can maybe figure out later through meetings of the whole or whatever, what we have for an ultimate goal with this land, instead of having to sit there with the unknown. And we've started talks about it, you know, a couple months ago, then it was just left, and I don't like when things just get left, because then there's unknown. So that's good, and we can maybe take this forward down the road in our meetings of the whole and discuss it further.
Yeah, no, it hasn't been just a couple months. This has come back and forth several times over the years, so, no, it's great. We need a motion just to receive his information? Yeah. Blaine's moving to receive for information.
How about that council move no action in relation to the urban subdivision or something like that? Okay, receive it for information.
I'll make that motion to receive it for information.
Thank you, Blaine. Vote. All right. That's carried. Oh, we got one enclosed yet. Need somebody to make a motion to go in closed. Michelle's making a motion to go in closed. Vote. I looked right over that one. Thank you. Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas.
Oh, somebody didn't vote. Yeah.
Was there any votes?
That motion. I made it.
What's that one?